Hello and welcome to the Weekend Debate. It's a special one this week. It's about Pride. It's about all sorts of LGBTQ plus. I can always remember all the different things to say. But we'll see how we go because things have been developing, literally getting ready for this broadcast. And first of all, though, get them to introduce themselves. Starting with you, Claire.
So I'm Clare Barber and I'm here in my role as coordinator for Isle of Pride.
Yeah, and we won't talk about anything else about standing or anything. She said don't mention it and we won't. So, Alan.
I'm Shea. I wore the famous costume in 1991, the concentration camp uniform that is now housed in the Manx Museum and is now 30 years old this year.
Wow, I mean, we'll talk more about that. And Kerry.
Hi, I'm Kerrigan. I'm an open trans woman on the Isle of Man and I represent the trans community for Isle of Pride.
And can you just make sure I get this right? How do you like to be referred to?
My pronouns are she and her.
Right, because everyone's a bit different, depends, right? Everyone has
yeah.
their own things. Okay, I say we're talking about things that are happening literally, and you got wobbly about coming on the show earlier, and we had to persuade you because you were really upset, and rightly so. There's been peers, and we've got to be very careful because there might be police involvement, and I think the pictures might have been taken down now.
Yeah, been taken down, yeah.
Right. Do you want to explain what you see?
It's an homophobic attack on two married guys. One was it's his birthday and they were both attacked from behind. Ended up with one with a big huge black eye, one with a lump on his head, and I believe they've had concussions. So it's made me angry and mad, and in this day and age this type of thing should not be happening.
This is not the first one though in this series. I mean, I remember other ones
with Ryan as well. That was a couple of years ago. This is 3, but in Pride Week, an attack like this is ridiculous. In this day and age, it should not be happening.
Which makes it all the more important, doesn't it, Claire, that this event is here to celebrate. And I know it's a year late and frustration galore, but I mean, with your politician's hat on as well and everything, I mean, how does this play with you, this goes on?
It makes the point, for those people who've asked why do we need Pride, I think it makes that point very strongly. It's awful what's happened, of what I've seen. Obviously, I imagine that more information may come out over the coming weeks, but certainly from what I've seen so far, it's just horrendous that these things are still happening in this day and age. But it also talks to the need for year-round work, for education, for awareness programs, for making sure that services are accessible. We've got a survey ongoing at the minute to actually try and understand how many people within the LGBTQ plus community have actually been assaulted but not reported it, because we are aware that it is very much an underreported crime for a whole number of reasons, but also that really important need for getting proper hate crime legislation on the Isle of Man that is not in place at the minute.
Any interaction you've had of a not a very pleasant nature?
So I've fortunately never been physically assaulted, but I have had the offhanded comments. I've had people drive past me, yell something out their car windows, just the regular verbal abuse that comes with being openly trans.
How difficult was that to do here on the island, or did you do this when you were away?
This has only ever happened on the island. I don't go away often.
Right, so much harder?
Well, most of the time they're gone before I can have a reaction to it, so it doesn't faze me. But I was thinking
about more your journey, to do this. I mean, here on the Isle of Man.
Yeah, no, that journey has been endless frustrations. The public health system, both here and across, are not equipped to handle it. I think it's fair to say my doctor has been incredible with me. He's been super patient. He's been, he's listened to what I've had to say on the matter. He's listened to what my doctors across have had to say on the matter. But he himself wasn't prepared when I came in and said, I'm a transgender woman. How can you help me? And I believe there have been some efforts to correct that since, but I've been going through this for 6 years and I'm still not.
Claire's nodding. I mean, with your health hat on, I'm guessing now, right?
Yes, actually, we had a really positive meeting just in the last week with Manx Care, talking about how we can make sure services are accessible. And actually, we've committed now from both sides, both from Manx Care, DHSC, and from Isle of Pride, to put together a working group to actually identify the services where there are gaps and how we can improve those and work together on that.
And this will be on the NHS as such, because this is the main thing. I mean, it has to be one of those things that's on a list somewhere, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think there's a whole host of things. There's the accessibility accessibility and making sure that services, the people delivering those services have had appropriate training and feel confident to talk to people who are, they're going down that route of understanding for themselves their gender and how that's going to transition, if that's the right thing for them. But they need to understand and be supported through that, and you need to be able to access good, comprehensive information in an accessible way. So we're looking at that. We're also looking about blood donation, because there's still outstanding issues around blood donation. There's challenges around access to PrEP for HIV. There's lots of different parts of this as we see it, and we want to make sure that we're understanding and recognising all those. And as I say, through some of the survey work we're doing as Isle of Pride as well, we see that we'll start to gather more comprehensive information, but also be able to use that as a benchmark for future surveys to actually understand whether we're getting things right.
Do you think they are getting it right?
I think at the minute there's huge gaps, and
Yeah.
I can see that.
Are we
But
behind
what
the
I
UK
mean-
though, sort of thing? I mean, is this a sort of a Manx thing that don't ask, don't tell for years? Has not been there. No one's even seen it, and
There's
then
certainly some
suddenly-
elements such as
Yeah.
PrEP which are available elsewhere and aren't available here. So I think it's absolutely right we understand where there are discrepancies between what we're providing and what people could access if they were in the UK. But there's a real will within those services to get it right, and I think that's a brilliant starting point. We've got Manx Care will be represented at Pride. They want to come down, they want to talk to people in the community, and they want to understand what actually needs to happen to get this right. So I think we're starting from not maybe the best point. I think that's historically been the case here, but there's real hope for us getting to where we need to be. So, Kerry's been an absolute asset within Isle of Pride in that regard, because she's able to talk to us from a personal lived experience of things that didn't work. And I think if we don't have that knowledge, it makes it very hard to come at this and actually say, these are the things that need changing to get it right.
So you're coordinating trans. How many-ish on the Isle of Man are we talking about? Is it? I'm sure there's a lot of people that do it all quite quietly and don't want to go out dressed up or change. I don't know if I'm handling this in the right way. You tell me. Come on.
Well, personally, I know of at least 50 other trans individuals. That's covering the entire umbrella. So trans women, trans men, non-binary people, agender people. The list does go on. But based on numbers in the UK and in other places, I would have to say a rough estimate of 600 at minimum.
I mean,
There were trans people here, believe it or not, in the 1990s, because one that I know of has transformed from female to male, and I see him every day. So it's
and would anyone realise, or is it one of those things that everyone knows?
No, he's just basically looks like a normal. Well, he is a normal straight bloke, because that's exactly what he is. He's a normal straight bloke, and and I know his family. So there's no need to say what they wear. He's just. But I saw him. You see him down the street. He's walking quite hefty. So you can tell. You know what I mean?
I'm hoping that the data from the census will be of assistance this year, because for the first time there is questions within the census.
Voluntary, though.
Voluntary questions, and I suppose one concern is that I don't think it's been articulated well enough in advance of Census Day. We had fed in as the charity asking for the information to be gathered because it helps with service provision. I know, though, having spoken to people since, there's some people who have not filled that in because they felt it was just too intrusive. But if they'd have understood more about why that was being asked, they may well have filled that in. But there's certainly some data will be gathered through the census, which I hope will be of assistance with demonstrating the actual numbers within the community.
And forgive me, because I'm just asking questions, because I need to know more, like everyone really. I mean, there's different levels of trans, right? I mean, if you want the full, or just want to,
I wouldn't
help me
refer
out.
to it so much as levels as
Right.
a different spectrum of identities.
Yeah.
So there are, there's terms like transmasculine, transfeminine, non-binary. These are terms into themselves, in such that a transmasculine person might not undergo any surgeries, but they might dress more masculine, they might engage with more masculine activities, and vice versa for transfeminine, non-binary people, might move towards feminine traits or masculine traits, or be androgynous. Right. So it's really more of a spectrum than it is levels, and it's like to their own needs. And
what about school age? I mean, what age can you get help? I mean, is there such a point that you can?
So there is some provision under child and adolescent mental health here, out of necessity, with younger people who have presented as trans to that service. but there's largely no medical intervention that can happen until you are considered an adult, 18 onwards. It can be really difficult to get puberty blockers early on here, which can be rather damaging to a young person's mental health. But once you're older, the provision is mostly orchestrated by people across rather than here as well.
Yeah, certainly we've had inquiries from teachers wanting to understand better how they can support pupils. So that's something that we want to look at as a charity. Though I think, since we've talked more openly about our desire to provide education, we've had a huge amount of interest, which is really, really positive. But it also shows there's a deficit as we stand now. So we certainly need to address that. But one of the things the schools have done is Sean Delenti has been over, really positive speaker. He's one of the Points of Light Award winners in the UK and does a huge amount of work within the LGBTQ community. And he's come over and worked with some of the schools over here already. And that's certainly a relationship that we would like to support and nurture.
Right. Alan, when you hear all this and you think back what you had to do 30 odd years, do you just believe the seismic changes that are going on
The
here?
changes, I do believe that they are done very well. I've always said this, as I come over, and I took a come over to do something, and then I brought in Outrage from London, and we had the big demonstration, and
we'll talk loads more about this.
Caused a lot of upset.
You cause a lot. Well, I mean, the videos, that's the thing. The video is on YouTube. It's just staggering to watch the abuse you're getting. I mean, this was the police to some degree were not being over cooperative.
Unfortunately, my house was watched by the chief constable, believe it or not. He was a junior officer outside my house, watched, obviously being ordered to do it. A friend of mine from here came to my home and he explained, I said, do you remember when I told you I would stop? I said, yeah, and he told me the old story that they went to school together. Right. And we've been asking for this apology, not just for me, I'm asking for the families that have lost people, you know what I mean? Yeah. A lot of people lost the children lost their fathers, so this apology from the police needs to happen.
Well, we can talk more in those sections. I've only got you for one section as such because we're having a switch. This is the first time. It won't be you changing people. It's not you changing because we've got a drag.
I only dream of being as glamorous as Vida.
A drag. Yes. So let's do with Honor Pride with your context. I mean, you're getting flack because you're a straight person. What are you doing organising this or getting involved?
I see myself very much in the coordinator role. There was lots of people I'd spoken to within the LGBTQ plus community who wanted to bring Pride to the island. And so I simply brought those people together. I'm running around sending emails and doing organising, but there's a huge group of us who are working together to get this right. And as I say, this isn't just about a big party. There's going to be a symbolic parade, which I think you've spoken with Mary about, to tell that journey, because it has been a journey. And I think we are indebted as an island to the work that Alan and Outrage and a huge number of other people, far too long really to list here, did in terms of bringing this to the awareness and the conscience of the public of the Isle of Man at a time when things were harder. So I think it is frustrating when we then see attacks like we spoke of earlier, still happening, because actually we should be beyond that now. We should be able to say that actually people are free to be their true authentic self in the way that they wish to present to the community, and they should do that without fear.
Have you had any kickbacks on this from things? I mean, there's a lot of chit-chat about the radio, something was happening on the radio, Manx Radio, late night, Stuart Peters, that you're angry about. I know you're sending off your letters already, aren't you? Is that... Oh, yeah.
For me, it's frustrating that comments are being allowed to be stated on the national broadcast. And I appreciate they are badged on the website as being the comments of one person there. But actually, the fact they're being played through the national media broadcaster does give them a credibility that just shouldn't be allowed, in my opinion. There was comments made about transgender persons, there was comments made about the broader LGBT community, and I just think it's wholly unhelpful and inflammatory. And actually then when we see attacks like those that have happened, there has to be an element of saying, do things and comments like that portrayed on the national media station, do they encourage them?
Well, yeah, but it's free speech, isn't it? Surely Go on.
And look, I
It's a tricky one,
get
isn't
the
it?
whole free speech thing, but I think that when it's coming through the national media broadcaster, it has to be tempered with factual information. So the suggestion on there that people choose to be transgender, for me, is just...
Oh, is that what the... Oh, go on. Here you go.
I mean, I would have loved this to be a choice. I really would. And none of this is a choice. It's been, difficult for me to come to terms with it myself. And the process of going, through the transition is... at some points harrowing what you have to deal with. So no, it's not a choice by any means.
Education then, and getting people to understand. This is probably what this Pride will hopefully do. I mean, to some degree. I mean, is it just a fun and games day out, or is there more to it than that then?
We want people to come and enjoy the day, but there is an absolute strong message that must be had around the journey that has happened to get us to where we are now, and the journey that's still to be taken. This isn't a case of let's all have a great party and celebrate, we're all done, we can all go home. That is not where we're at here. This is a year-round piece of work for Isle of Pride, very much seen as that. There's, as I said, there's work to be done in healthcare, there's work to be done in education, there's work to be done through awareness of prosecutions and making sure that the law is right. It's a big piece of work. There's still stuff to do, and I think that the things we've seen happening over the last few weeks, odd examples they may be, but they are.
I want to
still
talk more generally about
happening,
that.
and they are possibly only the tip of the iceberg.
Have you had angry letters though? Angry phone calls? People being angry to you about the whole thing, or was it been okay?
No, broadly actually, people have been positive. I would say there's odd people who maybe have said that I'm focusing too much on one area, but broadly actually everything has been positive.
And back to you, 30 years ago you were here, whatever it was. I mean, what made you come to Isle of Man in that first place when we had that sort of atmosphere here?
Well, my partner Stephen, who's from Peel originally, so we were buying somewhere in Liverpool, do a bull ring for Barrett, and then we came here and he said house prices were a bit cheaper here, so we bought one. Yeah, I lost the deposit in Liverpool.
And were you staggered though, find the climate?
I did not realise, honestly did not realise I was breaking the law all those years I was here. I only until the Sexual Offences Act 1990 came into force.
Right.
I thought, strange, strange.
Really.
But I always thought, stupid me, I always thought that was part of the United Kingdom, so it's a bit stupid, man.
Sounds like you just put a pin on the man.
And
men.
And
I like that on a man.
And you know what I mean. So I when because I broke the law, they never arrested me. This is the point. They never arrested anybody. So why keep this barbaric law? Yeah. This is what it was all. And then the homophobic politicians and the abuse. I thought, things have got to change.
And you felt no need to go away yourself, to leave the Isle of Man yourself, to go? You always felt things were okay here? Or
I mean, I grew up with a very, very, very wonderful group of friends. They never let me think that there was anything wrong with me. In a way, that kind of impeded my transition. But I don't blame them for it. They were wonderful people, still are. And, for the longest time, I didn't even know I was trans. And when it came to being trans, realising I didn't have any local role models to look up to, I decided I was going to make that step to be one myself for people like me who are younger. I think there's a lot of opportunity on the Isle of Man to be this progressive bastion in the world. And I would rather be here and be a part of building that than, run away from it.
Right. Well, in this section, before you disappear on us, do you want to give us a rundown what's happening a week today? Well, we'll record this on Saturday, so it's a week today, isn't it? Over to you, give it a plug and everything.
Yeah, so we'll have the Villa Marina Gardens will be open from 12 till 12. There'll be a welcoming in of the parade. Sadly, that will be smaller than had been anticipated.
I hear you're battling, it's my problem, and DOI and all sorts, and basically just roadworks, I suppose. Let's be polite about it.
Roadworks have been the challenge, just because for the capacity, safely, they can't sign it off. And I have a huge degree of sympathy, having walked the prom on numerous occasions and looked at the narrow paths we'd have had to try and tread with a lot of people. So for safety grounds, this year it's not going to be able to happen in the way that we had envisaged it, which is a shame because it's a huge part of what Pride is about.
Yeah, but it's better than last year but you couldn't even do it. So
Well, that's
you,
true.
and you've got great sponsors, haven't you?
We're taking what we can get. So yeah, we've got the co-op sponsoring the parade, and they're also going to be sponsoring something quite exciting. So keep your eyes out Tuesday on the Villa Marina. Okay. And then in the Villa grounds, we'll have a family tent that's going to run from 12 to 6. Huge amount of craft and art activities that will focus on equality. We're going to have some story times with our fantabulous drag act Vida, who you'll be seeing shortly, and then we'll also have stands available on the day. So we've got the prosecution service coming along. They want to listen, they want to understand. I think that's really important. Manx Care also coming along, again wanting to understand from the community firsthand what it is that needs to change. And I think all of these are really positive messages. We're also going to have live music though throughout the day.
I had a rumour a pair of Marks and Spencer's pajamas might be on display, or look-alike version, but it's so treasured by the museum now they can't release it.
And
Am I right?
I actually support that.
Oh, right.
That decision. There was going to be a replica made. I also decided that I'm not allowing it.
Right. That is literally, if anyone hasn't seen it, is it on display still, or was it just kept?
It's been on display.
We've done a video about
there is things happening, but that is up to the Manx Museum to inform, not me.
It's still pretty incredible, isn't it? 30 years on, it's become something that the museum really
I've
wants.
seen where they wanted to put the costume, they also, it was a nice shop. I'm very sorry, it was a very dusty shop. The glass is very thin.
Yeah.
And the idea of, because it's part of the Manx heritage, and I understand this with the curators of the museum, is that if they would have put it in there, it could get damaged with dust.
Right. Okay.
Dampness.
But not this time, but who knows?
Anyone could have broken the glass and still.
Are you going to go in the parade? Are you going to walk along?
No.
How are you feeling?
No.
No? Okay.
No.
Oh, okay. Sounds like no. For some reason, we'll discuss that later. Have you got the flag from Guernsey or something coming along? Or was it Channel Arms?
Yeah. So just to finish off, so HSBC is sponsoring the family tent. PokerStars headline sponsor for the event. Guernsey are shipping me the big long rainbow flag, and that will form part of the parade. So we'll have people carrying that, and hopefully get some drone footage that we can then use throughout the year in terms of the other stuff that we're putting on. Because as I say, this isn't just the day. There's an important element about celebrating and people being able to celebrate being themselves, but this is all year. We can't have a situation where you can be yourself for one day of the year. You've got to be able to be yourself every day of the year, and that's certainly what I aspire to.
I do that every day.
And you do it fabulously.
I don't care what anyone calls me.
That's
call me anything, I don't care.
I knew you'd enjoy yourself when you come along today. Right, listen, we'll probably leave it here. This is the first. We're going to say ta-da to you. And maybe you come back later. We don't know see how it just goes, but
we'll see.
high hopes for numbers. I mean, obviously they're limiting on that particular walkthrough, but otherwise the Villa Gardens can hold quite a...
The Villa Gardens, I think the amount we've been given is just over 4,000 for capacity. So, we've had huge amounts of interest. We're hoping that it will be really, really busy, and people will come along and take the opportunity to learn as well. So come along, enjoy the music, but come along and take something away from it in terms of the importance of getting equality, getting inclusion right. We've seen lots of businesses putting up window displays, which is absolutely brilliant, but we're really wanting to work with those businesses to make sure that the way that they're operating and functioning their services actually really embed those principles in their everyday customer service, because it can't just be about having a rainbow flag.
Is there anything you need, by the way, before you go? Is there anything else you need to? This is your chance now to, if you're looking for somebody with something,
just come down and enjoy it. We've had so many offers, and I'm so grateful to the multitude of individuals, volunteers and businesses for the offers they've given us. We really are absolutely humbled in terms of what we've been given, but we want people to come down on the day, come rain or shine, and just enjoy themselves.
I think it's going to be, I do honestly think it's going to be really busy. Yeah. Because this is a first public one.
Yeah.
There have been done ones in private, but this is a first public one. And I think everyone's going to be amazed how busy it's going to be. So I hope they've got enough. I hope they've got enough marshals for the people.
We've got lots.
Okay, Claire, thank you for that. Vera is joining us.
Vida.
Who's
Vera?
I know. I think it's
someone tucked away in the back room. I don't even know about.
Vera,
sorry. Anyway, joining us shortly. Don't miss it in part 2.